Why are these clubs friends with each other and what unites them? Football is a game in which everyone competes against each other, where it would seem that there should be no hint of friendship between teams, but there are exceptions to the rule, even among clubs that play in the same city, and there are those who are united by communities in different countries. For example, it might surprise many to learn that Tottenham Hotspur and Ajax Amsterdam have had friendly relations for over a century. It all started with the founding of Tottenham in 1882 in North London, where at that time there was a huge Jewish diaspora, which only grew with each passing year, as Jews began to immigrate there from the Russian Empire due to persecution and constant pogroms. Because of this, Tottenham gained the reputation of a Jewish club, but ironically, the majority of the Jewish diaspora supported Spurs' eternal rivals, Arsenal. To annoy Tottenham to the maximum, the Gunners organized Yom Kippur for them, and only over time Spurs adopted this tradition for themselves. But despite this, Tottenham is still associated with the Jewish community, and it's enough to look at the stands where you can see how the club's badge perfectly blends with the Star of David. Meanwhile, Ajax, founded in 1900 like Tottenham, played their matches in the northern part of the city, albeit in Amsterdam, at the Het Houten Stadium surrounded by the Jewish diaspora of the Netherlands. Interestingly, at some point, Amsterdam was even called the New Jerusalem. In 1934, Ajax moved to the new De Meer Stadium, which was still not far from the Jewish quarter of the city, and despite the fact that they gradually distanced themselves from this area over time, and after the Jewish community of Amsterdam decreased by 75% due to World War II, the status of the Jewish club still remained with them to this day. Against this background, both clubs have strong friendly relations, which manifested itself in 1974 in the UEFA Cup final. In the final, Tottenham played against Ajax's eternal rivals, Feyenoord. The second final match took place at Rotterdam's De Kuip, and to ensure Spurs weren't without support, their friends from Ajax came to support them. Despite Tottenham's classic bottling up, fans of the Amsterdam club started a massive riot, which only strengthened the friendship between the two clubs. And when in 2019 Tottenham played against Ajax in the Champions League semi-finals, the Amsterdam Twitter beautifully announced the matches between themselves with the caption, "It's time to meet our ex-friends." The photo itself depicted former Ajax players Christian Eriksen, Jan Vertonghen, Davinson Sanchez, and Toby Alderweireld, but it was also very beautiful because the three crosses were depicted on the coat of arms of the city itself. By the way, even the sworn enemies of Ajax Feyenoord have friendly relations with an English club, namely Sunderland. The reason for the friendship between these clubs is also interesting. It all started in 1970 when many workers from the ports and docks of Sunderland moved to work in Rotterdam. Rotterdam's shipyards are the largest in Europe, so it's not surprising that when in the second half of the 20th century the number of shipyards in northeast England began to decline, many participants in this trade moved there. Since many of them wanted to attend football matches in their free time, they decided to watch Feyenoord's games, noticing that the Dutch club had the same colors as their hometown club. In turn, the local residents of Rotterdam were pleasantly surprised that the English workers showed respect for their club, and as a sign of respect, they began to follow the ups and downs of Sunderland. Even when the workers returned home, they maintained their support for the Dutch club even after returning to England. Eventually, some Feyenoord fans began to consider Sunderland their English team. Feyenoord Mackems can still be seen today. Similarly, when Feyenoord plays at De Kuip, several Sunderland banners are always displayed. Friendship built on mutual respect is wonderful, but so is rivalry and mutual hatred, which can be the cause of friendship between clubs, as Liverpool and Everton can confirm. In the late 18th century, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the city was John Holding. When Everton was banned from playing at the Priory Road Stadium in 1884 due to the team's fans causing many problems, John Holding stepped in to provide a place for the club to play. He leased land from his acquaintance brewer John Orrell and built stands, naming the stadium Anfield. Everton played at Anfield, but in 1892 they left because Holding bought the land and raised the rent, so they moved to Goodison Park. Not wanting the stadium to sit empty, Holding founded his own football club, Liverpool, thus creating the Merseyside Derby. Over time, the clubs forgot about this quarrel, considering it unnecessary for both clubs. In Liverpool, it's not uncommon for families to support both Liverpool and Everton. The clubs never represented any religious, ethnic, or class groups, but the fans were united by their hatred of the government, especially Margaret Thatcher. Due to her reforms that greatly affected the port workers, she withdrew state support for enterprises, leaving most of Liverpool's residents unemployed. Additionally, Margaret Thatcher herself had always hated football fans because they constantly caused riots at stadiums and beyond, although this did not apply to Liverpool and Everton fans, who united against her, and football became an important part of the city's culture during a difficult period for the city. However, this period was also the most successful for both Merseyside Merseyside clubs, and they even played against each other in the FA Cup final in the 1985-86 season, which Liverpool won. There could have been more trophies on the European stage for Merseyside if not for the Heysel Stadium disaster in 1985, which led to English clubs being excluded from European competitions. The tragedy at Hillsborough also united fans of both clubs, where 97 fans of Liverpool fans tragically died in a crush, and it didn't matter which club you supported in your city. Transfers between the clubs often occurred and simply called it crossing the park, although it had been prohibited in early years, but as we can see, the world has changed as well as the relationships between clubs. Only one signing was met with negativity, and it was due to Rafa Benitez himself, who had spoken poorly of Everton a long time ago when he was Liverpool manager. This shows how one person can change the perception and relationship, which also happened between Celtic and German St. Pauli. That person's name is Sven Brux. This is a St. Pauli fan who in 1991 traveled to the United Kingdom where he attended matches of many teams, but Celtic made a big impression on him. When he returned to Hamburg, he wrote an article thanking the Scots for their warm welcome, was delighted with the atmosphere at the stadium, and advised all St. Pauli fans to visit their matches in Glasgow at least once. Many followed his advice, and over time, Celtic fans began to travel to Germany to attend St. Pauli matches. Thus, the clubs became friends with each other. But there is also another reason, and it's the enemies of both clubs, Rangers and Hamburg. Since Hamburg fans traveled to support Rangers, they automatically became enemies for Celtic and eventually for St. Pauli too. Plus, the fundamental principles of the German club are strongly reflected on Celtic. Tolerance and respect in mutual human relationships are important pillars of the philosophy of the German club, and the history of the Scottish club fits well with these principles. In addition to mutual visits of fans to each other, they also organize parties. Every autumn, 400 Celtic fans come to Hamburg, where they simply have fun together with St. Pauli supporters, and the clubs themselves constantly play friendly matches against each other. Another example of friendly rivalry exists in Scotland itself, between Hibernian and Heart of Midlothian, which didn't start as a friendly one. The strongest clubs in Edinburgh, like those in Glasgow, have many contradictions because Irish immigrants and the poor population support Hibernian, while Heart of Midlothian is mainly supported by the wealthy and native Scots. They have plenty of reasons to hate each other, but they cannot exist without sympathy for each other for many reasons. It all started in 1875 when Hibernian was founded in Edinburgh. The club's problem was the lack of opponents, as no one wanted to play against Irish Catholic immigrants, and they were refused entry into the championship. The only team that agreed to play against them was Hearts. The first match took place on Christmas Day 1875, even though Hearts had only 8 players on the pitch for the first 20 minutes. It didn't stop them from winning 1-0. Hibernian remembered this gesture, and since then, other teams also decided to play against them, and the Edinburgh Derby acquired additional significance. However, since matches are generally not played on Christmas, New Year's matches became a classic of Scottish football. The first such game between Hibernian and Hearts took place on January 1st, 1907, and almost every year they played on New Year's Day, although sometimes matches were played on the 2nd. This derby consistently attracted from 20 to 30,000 fans, but over time, interest waned, and the league itself destroyed this tradition by introducing a short winter break for all participants in the Scottish League. To rekindle interest in the Derby, the Festival Cup was organized in 2003. The Edinburgh Fringe Festival is the world's largest performing arts festival, lasting 25 days and attracting 2 million people annually. They wanted to use it to increase the attractiveness of the Edinburgh Derby, and it was decided to organize a tournament during the festival. Initially, it was assumed that a club from one of the cities with which Edinburgh has twinning agreements would be invited to play against Hearts and Hibernian in a 3-way tournament. Since Munich, Florence, and Kyiv are twin cities of Edinburgh, local media speculated that Bayern Munich, Fiorentina, or Dynamo Kyiv could play in the Scottish capital. In the end, the organizers failed to attract a suitable foreign team, and a unified format of play was agreed upon, involving Hearts and Hibs. However, in 2004, the second and final tournament between them took place. Despite the contradictions between the clubs, fans believe that they need each other to develop and progress. Plus, it's a beautiful Christmas story. But there's also an example of weird friendly relations, and that's between Fleetwood Town and Uzbekistan's Lokomotiv from Tashkent. Overall, how did this happen and why are they even friends? It's all very unclear, but interesting. It all started in 2015 when Fleetwood Town returned to League One, which was a huge success for the team. Club chairman Andy Pilley then decided that the club should expand on the international market, and in April 2015 he announced a partnership between Fleetwood and Tashkent's Lokomotiv. As stated on the club's official website, Uzbekistan, which boasts a population in excess of 31 million people, and has the fourth largest gold deposits in the world, has invested extensively in its football facilities, and one of its leading clubs is looking to the UK to assist its long-term development. In addition to this, it was supposed to help facilitate player exchanges between the two clubs and provide opportunities for joint training camps. The leadership of Fleetwood traveled to Tashkent, where they were amazed by the modern infrastructure of the club, although they expected something different. There were no particularly serious agreements made except that Lokomotiv's youth team would travel annually for short training camps in England. There were plans for friendly matches, but they never materialized. Why? It's very simple. In Uzbekistan, the season runs from March to July, not from late summer to late May. So far, there have been no transfers or friendlies between the clubs, but if you know why these clubs are friends and you're a fan of one of these teams, it would be interesting to hear from you in the comments. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments should I do a video on the history of certain club rivalries. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and love this game. Also, check out some of my other videos on the channel as you can see on your screen. My name is Ole, and I'll see you next time.